What makes a visual brand truly impactful? Well, the secret may not be what you think. It's got nothing to do with picking the right colors or creating the perfect logo or having the best Instagrid. My guest, Rowena Preddy, is a brand designer and joins me in this episode to talk about how the best visual brands are the ones that find that unique, distinctive balance between aligning with you as a person and attracting the right people to work with. We also touch on rebranding, consistency, and how to pick the right branding elements to update, especially when you're on a limited budget. Now, Rowena's energy and passion for her work is very obvious in this episode. Whether you're just starting out or looking to level up, listen in to uncover whether it's time for you to level up your brand. Welcome to the Powerful Content Podcast, your go-to source for content creation, strategy, and business inspiration. I'm your host, Mel Daniels, content strategist, coach, and speaker, empowering women across the globe to grow their business with powerful content that connects, nurtures, and converts. So, if you're ready to create standout content that gets you noticed and remembered, or build an aligned audience who love you and are ready to buy from you, you're in the right place. I believe that content has the power to connect us all. It's up to you how you use it. Listen in for genuine and insightful chats with guests, as well as practical tools and strategies from me. It's so lovely to have you here. Let's dive into the show. I acknowledge the Wongal people of the Eora Nation as the traditional custodians of the country that I am recording from today. I recognise their continuing connection to the land and waters. I pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all First Nation people listening today. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to episode 129 of the Powerful Content Podcast. Thank you so much for choosing to be here today. And I know that you're going to be pretty happy that you chose to be here, as I have the lovely Rowena Preddy from Preddy Creative with me today to discuss all things branding. Welcome to the podcast, Rowena.
Hey,
Lovely to have you here.
thank you for having me. Honestly, I have been binging some of your recent episodes as well as like going back into the archives, and it's given me the kick up the butt to get my content sorted. So go you.
Awesome. Good to hear. Good to hear. Well, let's kick some more butt today around branding. But before we dive into it, I'd love to know what you actually love about branding and kind of like how you ended up where you are today.
Wow,
Mm.
big question.
It is. It's a massive question.
I'm going to start with my favorite one. What I love about branding is even though I have done the study and have the experience and all those things, branding still feels like freaking magic to me. Like I was always an avid fantasy reader back in the day, and still am to this day, although maybe the genres changed slightly. But branding to me feels like magic. It feels like every single time I think I know where something's heading and it will head in a different direction, because that's what happens when two people work together, is that it's finding that really cool cross section that's unique to the person. So I love the magic of branding, and I love the power of what it can do for people when it's something that they truly love. Like you can just see how it changes how business owners interact with their business, as well as how it affects their clients.
And it certainly does. Like there's just so much, you just experience so much more confidence. And as a result of that, you're more likely to be visible. And I'm sure that we're going to get into all of this today. But you mentioned a term there, the power of branding. And I really love that. I think that it does have so much power, especially when it's used with all the other little pieces of branding, like the content, the visual space, copywriting. I think that it can be super powerful. So that's why you love branding. How did you get here?
I got here via everyone expecting me to become an accountant.
Mhm.
And that became very clear that I wasn't going to do that at school. Like the second I took my first design class, I was like, this is it. I have to find a way for this to be my career. And it's definitely come by the wayside of doing the 1990s, early 2000s obvious career progression path, where you climb your way up the ladder, often with a lot of males above you in the hierarchy, and had to do the fighting for it every step of the way. But I kind of always had this niggle that I had more to offer. that there had to be more to it than that. And the freedom that there is in career paths these days, and that combined with my position being made redundant at my last full-man job, I kind of realized that if I didn't take a bet on me, I couldn't keep relying on other people to take a bet on me. So I took the bet on myself, and I'm still here 6 years later, and I can't ever admit. I think I've pretty much made myself unemployable by now.
What do you mean by that?
I think I have a very staunch belief of what I love to do, how I love to do it, the kinds of people I love to work with. I love being the driver behind where my moral code and my business code sit. And I think a lot of organizations have to move a lot slower to get to that point because they are what they are. And it's kind of, breaking down how things have always been done. But I've just loved the personal and professional journey of being in business for myself and the development for it. I've grown to be a completely different person for myself and for my clients, that it's kind of almost put me in an undefinable job role position.
I love that perspective. I've never heard anyone describe it like that before, but it is so true, Rowena, that we do end up embracing our businesses, embracing who we are as people, and coming to a realization of what is most important to us in our personal and our business life as well. And then we potentially find that difficult to translate into a larger company as well. I love that description. Thanks, Rowena. So let's talk branding. Let's talk all things brand. We kind of throw this term around brand, sometimes without a real understanding of exactly what it is. So I'd love for you to perhaps explain your version of branding or a brand, and why do we even need to care about it?
For me, I've always, in business, we get chucked all of these big documents that we're supposed to do with these big mission statements and this and everything. And the best way I can describe a brand in a few words is it's a vibe. It's literally, it comes down to it's a vibe. How do people feel when they're around your business and they're engaging with your business? Because branding is emotion. People buy with their hearts in a lot of ways. We can put all the marketing speak around it that we want, but ultimately it comes down to if you're a vibe or not. And if you're a vibe for that person versus that person.
I love that description. That's really cool. And I think that that's a really good reminder as well around consistency of brand, isn't it? So we need to have a vibe on Instagram. We need to have a vibe in real person. It needs to be the same vibe. Otherwise, that mismatch is really going to break down the trust and credibility.
And it's a huge part of why now, in a lot of ways, the way that I brand people kind of does lean into that unemployable space, because there's a lot of prescribed ways to brand, and there's a lot of advertising formulas and all of those sorts of things. For me, and especially because I work very closely with what I call startup and level up businesses. So those people in those sort of probably 0 or T minus sort of years to 4 or 5 years. They're kind of my zone of genius because, one, I've been there, but also because I am a firm believer of branding you into the heart of your business. And I realize that some people, that's not for them, but I feel as solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, micro businesses, wherever what sort of space you're in, ultimately it comes down to you. We're not talking about McDonald's here. And so having a brand that's true to you and aligned with who you are, the realization is that's automatically going to help things line up. That's going to remove some of that disconnect. I mean, if people jumped onto my website tomorrow, currently it is vibrant, it is fluoro, it is, really, really real and relatable. It's just, there, and it is what it is. If tomorrow you rocked up and suddenly saw that it was very modern, very sleek, refined, muted color palette, and then you suddenly rocked up to a meeting with me and went holy crap, that does not match what I was expecting, the trust is automatically broken. But the fact that I have people rock up to my website, then rock up to their first meeting with me and go, holy crap, you're exactly the same.
And that is so important as well. It's so important. I cannot stress how important that is. I just want to pick up on a couple of things that you spoke about then, Rowena. The first one being, I think it's a really special skill and service that you have to
bring to those very new businesses, those very raw businesses, the ability to be themselves and let that shine through their brand. I think that so many times we come to business simply because we've come out of a corporate space or, like an office space, that we need to look and we need to sound a certain way. And that certain way is not usually who we are as people. And it often takes people a very long time to realize this, very simple concept. And I talk about this all the time with content as well, Rowena. And it's about being you and bringing your strengths and your values and your beliefs to the table. And so for you to be able to do that with a new startup, I think is something really, really special.
Well, especially because it's very formulated at the beginning and it's very big and it's very overwhelming. And I think the reason we all got into this was because we had a passion, we had something that we loved. Then we might have fallen into it for a variety of different reasons, but ultimately we chose this. And so I think some of those really big earlier years things that can happen and the sort of the learning curves can kind of bruise us a bit. And I think having that core and having that central, like my logo that I designed for myself 6 years ago is as relevant today as it was then. My branding has grown around it as I've grown, but that's okay. Like it's adjusted. Ultimately at its core, it stayed very, very true to me. And I think having that sort of North Star of having a brand that's true to you, it gives you space to grow.
Mm. Yep, definitely. And it's something that you've just said then is that it is okay to change, and it is okay to evolve. I know that my brand visually and, from a voice perspective has changed very much over the last 8 years, very much indeed. So when we're thinking about that branding process, Rowena, and being our perhaps authentic selves with the brand, sometimes I feel like we go too far the wrong way. So we really lean into what we love and what we like without thinking about our ideal client. Is there a balance that needs to be had there, or is it all about you?
It's not all about you. I love to go through a process with people where it is about naming and claiming those brand values, but in a really like simple way. So for instance, I like to use myself as an example because again, I like things distilled down really simply. So I'm bold and I'm confident. My design style is bold. I present very confidently, but my clients need me to be those things too. So I lean into them, right?
Sure.
And as an example, one of the things that I was leaning into, so I actually asked about 20 of my clients and 20 of my friends on Facebook and stuff, what word did they think of when they thought of me? And I sort of put them together on one of those word jumbles and the word fun fell out a lot. And I was like, yeah, I am fun, but fun isn't a brand value for me. Fun doesn't work for my clients. They don't need me to be fun. And I was like, well, maybe they need me to be playful and creative. And I was like, yeah, they need those things, but it's not, they come to me often in these places of fear or, overwhelm or with a billion questions running through their head. They don't actually need me to be playful because it's not what they're looking for at that point. And so I was like, actually, the word I need is energetic. I am energetic. They need me to be energetic. They need that momentum, that movement, that energy to feel confident going into this process. And so that's how, rather than it being all me or all them, it's finding this nice cross section between the two things. And I think so often when we get in our own heads, it can become very much ourselves. And that's where I feel like, for instance, I've hired a copywriter to write my website to sound more like me, which seems ridiculous, but they've got the perspective. It doesn't become like a love letter to me. They consider my clients. And so sometimes I feel like if we feel like ego stepping into it too much or we've become too me, sometimes taking that step back, and that applies to branding as well, just taking that step back and sort of going, how do I need this to be? And if I'm not the person that can do this, who can help me with this at this point? Because it has to be that cross section, and that, let's be honest, it's huge. Like thinking how that applies to copywriting, how it applies to branding, how it applies to you showing up to networking events, how it actually affects you doing the work. It's a lot. So I think just having those core central concepts
can really help to refocus you when you're feeling a bit all over the place and something's feeling unaligned.
Yeah. I'm going to pull out two things that you just said then. And one is about around getting help. And I think that that's so important. We often get stuck in our own decision drama and lack of perspective as well as being solopreneurs. And it's important that we get help or outside perspective, insight, whatever it is, from other people to ensure that we are delivering a brand or showing up as a brand in a very consistent way. And the second thing was finding that beautiful middle ground, the middle ground being that place where you can show up as your authentic self and attract the people that you want to attract in a way that they want you to show up as. So I think that those 2 points are absolutely beautiful. Now, earlier on in this episode, you mentioned the word evolving, and I'm guessing that with evolving comes rebrand or thoughts about how you can shift what you look like visually to something different and to something new. So I guess what are the signs that we're ready to do that? I think you use the term level up.
Yes. So I love the term level up because it is, I find that so many of us, like through the networking groups, through the coaching groups, for all those sorts of spaces that I've hung out with fellow women in business, there seems to be these stages. And some of us like manage to jump feet first and they've got this, they do it from the start. But a lot of us muddle our way through, and we do what has to be done to get us to a point. And sometimes that might be figuring out our packages. It might be even just learning how to run a business. You might have what you actually do nailed, but the actual business side's a lot. And we kind of do a lot of muddling. And we always seem, I know this happened to me and I've had other friends the same thing. It's almost like that like blinding light moment happens where you suddenly go, oh my God, I'm out the other side. Like, I feel like I can do this. I'm getting this. And then suddenly, as much as that like amazing energy comes through, often it also comes with a whole bunch of self-doubts. And it also comes with a whole, oh crap, here we go again type vibes. And often when I can tell when people are at those stages, there's a few things that they say to me. They're like, I know I need this, but I'm not sure what I want. Here, it just feels like a lot on top of a lot. Or I'm sick of not wanting to hand over my business cards or send them to my website or send them to my social media because it doesn't feel like me anymore. And as soon as like there's those, and those are actually really like blinding moments of clarity because the realization is you've kind of been in the trenches for so long. And so those moments of clarity, like we do have a tendency to sort of like second guess because it's new territory again. And it comes back to even just having a conversation with someone without even like you must buy from them or anything like that, but just having a sounding board with someone that might be able to help you. I've sent people away because they're actually not ready for branding with me. They've actually got some other steps they need to do first. But until you get that clarity, it's all just stuck in your head.
Okay, so maybe let's talk about those steps. When you are thinking about, or you had that moment of clarity when you feel like it is time to up-level your brand, what kind of things do we need to be thinking about or steps do we need to have taken in order to be truly ready for it?
Very first thing I sort of tell people to do is take a giant step back. Because branding a lot of people think of it as being the answer to everything, but it's taking that step back and having that really sort of honest conversation with yourself of how do I feel about my branding that I've got right now? How would I feel if I still had that in 5 years' time? What parts of it do I find hard? Like what parts of it do I avoid? Do I have control and confidence with putting my brand out into the world? And that's, when I say control, it's definitely like having all the elements of your brand and things like that. But the cool thing is you could have all of that stuff, but it doesn't feel like you anymore. And so it's just it's kind of like a practical versus emotional sort of push and pull and just having that really honest conversation with yourself. I actually have a freebie on my website. It's a really good one where it's like, do I actually really need to rebrand? It's called the freebie. And it's kind of it's a really quick checklist of like checking in against that push and pull.
Fabulous. I'll make sure that I put that freebie in the show notes. So what are some of the things that you might want to ask yourself, do I need to actually rebrand?
From a practical sense, let's start at the very foundations here, like looking at your logo. Do you love it? Like, do you want to show people it? Are you proud to show people it? That's the emotional check-in. And I'm currently working on logos for someone at the moment that's had the same branding for 6 or 7 years, but she has 3 files for her logo. And every single time she hands that file over, she's got buildings, she's got, actual physical locations. Every single time the printers need something else or they need some extra. And that's just become like that hard thing, She doesn't have the right file types to load it up to Canva. And so it makes creating in Canva harder. So it's kind of like that, okay, cool. But then it's even, like I said, branding's other things as well. It's like, does your website sound like you? Does your copy in your social media posts feel similar to your website? Is there a connection? When you jump into Canva, do you like start banging your head on the desk, which is a very common thing that people say, just kind of getting that sort of check in, because often there can be areas that you absolutely love and adore. Like I said, my logo has stayed the same, but I checked in with the things that were going on around it, like the style of photos and the colors that were going on, and they felt less me than they had 6 years ago. So I adjusted those things and it elevated those things. On top of that, I sort of adjusted some of my brand values, like things had changed a little bit in what I was offering. And so instantly everything kind of started to feel more aligned again. So it's just checking where the pits and troughs are going on. You've got peaks, things that are working well. And I love the concept of foundational branding. It's a lot of people will come to me and they'll have some things nailed and other things not. And it's really by nailing foundations, it's just bringing everything level, because it gives you the solid, I'm bringing in so many mixed metaphors, but it's also like the layer of a cake. You can't have the next layer of cake until you've got the one down. Let's be honest, we all want multiple layered cakes. So, it's like you layer the foundation and then you can start thinking about the sprinkles and all the other things that go on top of it, but it's nailing that foundation.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that a rebrand is really on the cards when you feel like your brand is less you than it should be. And before you should think about doing a rebrand, you really need to have the foundational pieces in place and be confident with those as well.
And even like you might not actually have them in place. It's going, that part's really annoying and it doesn't feel like me. So it's having a look across the board and not putting all your eggs in a logo is going to solve everything. It's having that moment of really honest clarity with yourself around where your strengths and weaknesses align within your brand.
Yeah, fabulous. Now, I feel like our brand is such a huge part of our business and a huge part of who we are as people. So I know that it can be very overwhelming at times as to where do I use my brand? What should I be putting where? What should I be spending my money on? Have you got any advice around these things?
A huge part. So just for some context, I set up my packages basically how I work best. And so it meant that I could work with the clients I love the most. And the thing that I will always say to people in any of my meetings is what's going to have the most impact for you and for your business right away. And some people that will be having templates so their day-to-day being in their brand is not stressful, that they can create for social media and they have like templates and rules and structure and they can just kind of no-brainer it, because they don't have to think into that space. Whereas, some people will be about that next thing. So maybe they're looking at launching a new course or, looking for more speaker work, those types of spaces. The things that will help support them into that space might have the biggest impact, knowing that they can go into their first big speakers gig with a pull-up banner that looks like them, some leave behinds, maybe like a cool piece of merch and a presentation that doesn't have death by PowerPoint or 10 different templates going on. You know what I mean? So it's what's going to have the most impact rather than what is the next door neighbor, the Joneses, doing so that I can be more like them. Because that ensures there's 2 of them. Like, what's the thing that's really going to make you go, that's sort of.
Awesome. So yes, I'm hearing that whatever makes the most impact is the best thing for you to do, because we can get really caught up in that shiny object syndrome and want all the things that won't necessarily make any difference to how we show up online. So I love that piece of advice.
And the impact is different for everyone. So I for example, have been doing a lot more of the stationary Instagram website style puzzle feeds because I keep hearing people going, we're just not posting, we just need to have a presence. We're really good at reels and stories, but posts just seem pointless because nobody's seeing them. So we just want to have the content they need to have there. I was like, well, let's do one of these for you, because then you can just focus on the areas that you're in and you can literally put a big cross through that, done, or a big tick next to it and not have to think about it for a while. Or, for example, one of my clients has the sheer depth of workbooks and presentations they have because they are in a HR space. So it's huge and it's a lot of information and it's really important information, but God, it's a lot. And like, it's a lot for me. And so the fact that they can get those sorted and have that relief of going, cool, it's all set up, it's easy to find, it's easy to search, it's right there. What next? It doesn't feel like you're constantly looking back and looking down at your to-do list. You can start to look forward and be proactive rather than reactive.
So if someone came to you then, Rowena, and said, I'm ready to rebrand, I'm ready to do something different, what should I do? It's then just a discussion around what is it that they use a lot in their business and what is it that would help them feel more outwardly confident as well.
Yeah, and it really comes down to, and one of the things, and this is where it also comes full circle again, where I almost feel like I'm unemployable. Like I remember getting briefs when I was working in corporations and stuff, and it was the same kind of information. It was very one-dimensional. That was, on a brief. Whereas one of the things that I've tried to build into, because so many people come to me and go, my last brand, I just got it handed over and then I didn't use it for 6 months because I was so overwhelmed by it all. And I was like, well, I didn't really like it, but I didn't feel like I could say it. And all of these things, branding's supposed to be fun and exciting and colorful and awesome. And like, it's supposed to like really help you rather than feel like this heavy thing that you have to deal with. You should be freaking excited to do it. So I wanted to bring that excitement back to the process. The energy, the reflection, like take you through a journey. So there's, I go through like quite extensive questionnaires, which is practical, emotional, all of those things. And every step of the way, like I realize how often we literally just hand pretty things to people and go, what do you think? Without any prompts, with any like guidance to the thoughts or processes, without any guiding questions to ask what kind of feedback we're wanting. And so often I feel like there can be a real disconnect between designer and client. I'm so all in it for you. I'm along the journey with you and I want you to come out the other side freaking screaming from the rooftops because it's good for you and it's good for me.
I just wish, Rowena, that my listeners could see you right now, because the passion, I can see that passion and that excitement. I can not only hear it, but see it as well, which is rather lovely. And this is one of the things that I just love about podcasting, is getting to speak to people who are just so obviously passionate about what they do and so obviously passionate about their clients and making the experience the best for them. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today around branding. But I'm going to switch the spotlight back on you for a second, Rowena. I'm all about women owning and using their superpowers. So what would you say is your superpower?
This is really hard. And I'm glad that you're copying and I'm glad that you can pause this and edit this because I'm really stuck. Let's have a think. My superpower.
And this is why I asked this question as well, because I think that so often we don't highlight ourselves and really think about what it is that we bring to this world.
My superpower would be, I think I have a couple that kind of tie in together. One of the things that gives me power is color. Like I love color and I feel that there is just a need for it in so many situations. I could not live in black day in and day out. I couldn't do it anymore. My wardrobe looks like a rainbow throw up in it. And so does my office. But my superpower would definitely be, I feel like it's connection and really like seeing people for who they are. Like I love real, true blue, down to the soul connection. None of the surface level, small talk, that kind of stuff. Like I am all in, authentically all, and I hate the word authentic. I don't know why. I feel like it was so overused. I am like stupid, ridiculous amounts all in when I go into those connections and stuff like that. And I love a pun. So I feel like puns is also my superpower. Some of them are the cheesier, the better. I've got some damn good ones. So if anyone wants to hear some of my dad jokes that I've got on my stash, hit me up.
And I can definitely say that, having connection as a superpower is such a beautiful thing for your clients as well. So I'm sure that they thoroughly appreciate that. Now, before we finish up today, do you have any final parting words of wisdom?
Seriously, just brand you. The journey to having a successful brand is tied so intrinsically with who you are that every time you invest in your personal growth, you will see your business grow exponentially.
Beautiful. Beautiful parting words of wisdom. And if anyone wants to go and check out either Rowena's free resource, Do I Need to Rebrand, or check out some of her amazing packages that she's spoken about today, make sure you head on down to the show notes. The link to her website and the other links will be there as well. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Rowena, and sharing your wisdom with my listeners. I truly appreciate you being here.
Honestly, this was so much fun, and hit me up for another time because this is awesome.
Thanks so much for listening. That's it for another week. To get more powerful content in your life, make sure you're following along on socials. My handle is @meldbusiness. And just in case you're wondering, the groovy music for this podcast was created by Just Here on SoundCloud. I'd also be super grateful if you took a moment to rate and review this podcast so more amazing women like you can experience the power of content. And if you're like, hell Mel, stop talking, I'm ready to work with you now, here's how we can work some powerful content magic together. Firstly, come and join the Content Effect, my membership inspiring women with service-based businesses to ditch the content chaos and start creating standout content that gets you noticed and makes sales. You can join us by using the link in the show notes or just Google the Content Effect. The second way we can work together is via my one-on-one packages. We can create a sustainable content strategy or start to build out your client journey. It's up to you. Pop on over to meldbusinessservices.com.au/services to find out more. Until next time, have a beautiful week and embrace the power of your content.